Hey friends, just a real quick intro here. Had a nice little conversation with my buddy Zach Mayfield this morning, and I'm just going to dump it right here on YouTube. Just a nice, raw, unfiltered conversation about YouTube, current state of cameras and tech. We got that Nikon acquisition of Red, which I think is interesting. We kind of get into the weeds on that a little bit, and just what it feels like on YouTube right now, specifically in the filmmaking space. There's a kind of an uneasy tension, I don't know, that's happening lately with cameras and just the filmmaking kind of nerd culture in general. And basically, it's kind of like a little therapy session where we just sort of vent our frustrations, things we like, things we don't like, all about camera and filmmaking YouTube right now. Hope you enjoy it. Very raw, very unfiltered. I'm not cutting any of this. This is just the conversation we had. If you like this, please let me know in the comments. And if there's anybody you want me to have on the show that doesn't actually exist, because this isn't a real show or anything, it's just people rambling, which I'm an absolute expert at, clearly. Anyways, here's my chat with Zach, and I'll see you real soon. Cheers.
What if a camera company was like, Patrick, we'll give you $100K to use our camera for a year, and we get access to all of your footage to use in any promotional stuff? Would you do it?
Is it specifically a camera brand, or do you have one in mind, or is it just any brand in general?
I'd just say a brand that you don't use.
I honestly, if like Blackmagic was like that, and sorry, but I would not say yes to that right now.
This thing is so weird.
I have one around here too. Like, I mean, more power to them. I love them as like a company and whatnot, and like sort of like their ethos, what they stand for. But they're just not. They're not hitting it, man. They're not. There's something off, right? It's like that shooting experience is just really brutal.
It is,
and I love everything about like the image, and like, not that I'm like a Resolve purist at all either. Like, I actually don't really even edit in Resolve. Like, I'm more Final Cut. But like, I could do the switch. I could do B-Raw, and like that's fine. I'm glad they have like a raw codec that you can play with. But I just shot this thing with Gerald literally yesterday for the X106, where I'm doing like a parody of like Fuji shooters, and I shot it on the Blackmagic, and it's like 15 minutes into the shoot, like it just blows one of those MPF batteries, right? Like, dude, dusted, right?
Yeah, and I got this grip here, which is originally for the 6K Pro, and this is the weirdest battery grip I've ever used because it doesn't just make all three batteries one big unit of power; they're separate units. And you see each unit of power on the screen.
Bizarre. Yeah, they sent me the battery grip too. I haven't even plugged it in yet, but that is very bizarre that it does that. Because I used to have a knockoff one for the Pocket 4K, and it didn't do that. Like, I'm pretty sure it was like a newer like grip that I had for the Pocket 4K.
Yeah.
That just showed up as I mean, those were Canon batteries at the time, right? The LPE6s. That one just showed up as like you had like an external unit. But also, like, even with the MPF inside, it's not like, battery's gonna die. It's just like, see ya.
It's just
off.
done.
It
just
shuts off.
Let's hope your recording isn't corrupted.
Totally. And so like, if it was just like it's funny you bring that up. Like, if it was just, I've thought about this before because like I've been talking to different camera manufacturers about this. Like, I do want to be loyal to one camera because I keep saying I don't care about cameras, right? And that is like for the most part true. Like, I will figure it out. Like right now, every sensor is whether I'm using this A7 IV or a Lumix, right, or anything, we can figure it out. We can make it look good. And so if I was to like commit to something, like I want to commit to something because I don't want to be coming on these channels all the time being like, well, now I'm switching to Nikon. Oh, now I'm using this, whatever, right? But with the Blackmagic stuff, it's like just make the body what we're all asking for, and it's like game over.
It's not even hard.
I will look over all that crap if it shuts off mid shoot and stuff. You know what I mean? If it just feels okay to use it and it's like a comfortable shooting experience, that's all that matters now. It's just shooting experience. It's not. I mean, that's like kind of like the thesis of this entire thing. It's like, it's not that like cameras are dead by any means, right?
No.
It's just the IQ standpoint, like the image quality standpoint, I think is a mute conversation now. There is not a camera from the last, I would argue 5, if not longer years, right, that isn't fucking phenomenal, that doesn't look good, right? And
from every company.
Totally, from every company. And so now it just comes down to like, okay, you pick up a Lumix S5 II or something, and you think to yourself, well, the IBIS is amazing. It's got shutter angle. It's got open gate recording.
The color's awesome.
It's checking off all these lists. And then you start shooting with it, and then all of a sudden, it just hunts a little bit on that autofocus, right? And you're like, well, damn. What do I really care about? It starts to make you really think about when you start using cameras now. Like, what do I actually care about? So for me, it was always with Sony. It was like the fucking image quality, like the color sucks. It always looks like green. You've been playing with these old Sonys. They just have like a greenish, like weird look to them. And I've always been someone who is just not into it, and I don't want to have to grade myself out of a corner. Totally.
Just switch to this.
Beautiful. That's a fucking phenomenal camera. Exactly.
Dude,
But,
I love
like
the VX.
like A7S2 era, right? And A7S, like the A7 IV, or sorry, the A7 III. I always was like, oh, these seem like really nice cameras. A6400 was a big one too.
Yeah.
I remember when I was doing a lot of corporate gigs, you just see guys at like conventions and whatnot, which is like a gimbal and an A6400, and you just knew they were just like lock and autofocus, wide angle at like 10 mil. And the client was just like, "This is phenomenal, right?" You're like, and I'm just sitting there with like a GH5, like trying to catch focus on a Voigtlander.
Oh my gosh, I did that for so long. I used my GH5, and there was those stupid tricks where like you would hold the GH5 out shoulder length if you were vlogging, and you would like figure out how to put focus onto your toes first.
Totally.
And then you knew that if you held it out shoulder length, your face would be in focus.
Totally.
It's like, why did I do that to myself for years?
And that's the thing. So you get to this point now, like to bring it back to Lumix, I love everything about their cameras, and I've talked to their engineers about this. First off, just fix the autofocus. Just make it as good as Sony. And at this point, you actually kind of have to make it better for people to really make a jump or make a switch or just really see it as a contender.
Totally.
But also, I'm just sick of hybrids. Like, I don't want another hybrid camera. Like, I don't
either.
I'm so tired of like us being like filmmakers and video makers, and we're stuck using photo bodies. And so when it all comes down to that like shooting experience and like this overarching thing, like I would 100% commit to one brand, but the experience of that camera has to be right. And I don't think there's one perfect camera right now. There definitely isn't. I think the closest is like these FX3, FX30s where it's comfortable and it's small and it's modular and it kind of has everything that you need aside from the stupid little crap like shutter angle, which is apparently coming in the summer or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's still missing open gate and it's still missing like, just some of that like je ne sais quoi from like a Blackmagic or a Lumix.
They're almost there, though.
It's almost there. And, it's nitpicking at this point, because I could easily switch to Lumix right now and make it the camera that I use all the time. But I know I would be sacrificing something that's become incredibly important to me, which is just autofocus. Like, just being able to do this with my hand and it popping right back to me.
Dude.
It's everything. And I hate it because I fought it for so long from, like, GH4, G85, Lumix G7, I became the like manual focus person, and now for work specifically, like screw YouTube. Like if on a client gig, the stuff that I kind of do, it is like the end all be all, because I know I can get the image quality to whatever I want. It really is just the autofocus. And so as soon as Lumix figures that out, and that's another thing I've been pissed off with this Blackmagic too. It's like I'll throw a Lumix lens on it. Yeah. And I'm still having to manually focus the entire time. And even if you want to use that like push button focus, it's not great. It's definitely like a contrast thing that sucks. And so I'm at this point now where I don't want to argue about cameras, and I don't even really want to make videos about cameras anymore, because like there's a thought in my head that like we're just all getting to this like diminishing returns where we can sit and do this conversation like on our channels where we're just like, oh, like it doesn't have this and it's missing that, but like when you see the footage, it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
so
the
what
footage
are we even
is
talking
there.
about? Yeah.
Now it's like all usability stuff.
Totally.
Dude, like even I know I'm like a sucker for these old cameras. Like this is
absolutely.
the VX1000, but like, dude, there's something to be said for a handle. I can hold this camera like this. It's made out of magnesium alloy, just like all the FX3s, FX30s.
That's crazy.
It feels incredible. It's like, what happened to just making video cameras for video shooters? Why do we have these tiny little weird shaped
I have no
things?
idea. Because I think that like I think they kind of look to. I mean, that's the thing. They make like the FX6s and the FX9s, which is like technically probably what we would all preferably shoot. Yeah. But we're all looking for the sub $3,500 version of that. And that's
exactly
the challenge. And the thing that the camera manufacturers are fighting up against is not making that camera, because it's going to eat into absolutely everything.
Yeah, because if they made an FX3 or 30 with variable built-in NDs and like a more boxy shape, like you don't need an FX6 in a lot of ways.
It completely cannibalizes the entire market. Where I see it as more like, Lumix will kind of dump the chicken sink. Lumix will dump the kitchen sink in a camera and then say, oh, by the way, it's just in this like little stupid creator vlogger system. And that's not the right answer either. Because then it's like, then you're getting all these like pros that want all these professional features in a body that looks like, your cousin got it at Best Buy. And it's like truly no one's taking that kind of shit seriously anymore. And part of the reason why is also because of that FX3 and FX30, because now that's become like an acceptable camera on bigger sets. Yeah. We've kind of like gone past this 5D world where like, showing up with a mirrorless camera or a DSLR is sort of like, oh, you're the Facebook Marketplace shooter that we found last minute. right? Because it's like you just have like the camera that shoots video, but you're also shoot photos. Whereas I've noticed like on bigger shoots that I've been on, no one bats an eye at like an FX3 or FX30. In fact, the guys that are shooting on ARRI on those kind of sets and stuff come over and look at it. It's like, oh, I love how small it is. I love how you can just like kit it out if you need to. And they're looking at it like, oh, I wish my big cameras were more like that. It's not the other way around. And so I don't know what these manufacturers are going to do, because they've sort of like pushed themselves into a corner. And then for us as like YouTubers, there's not much else for us to even talk about to market it. And so my take, like, I don't know how you feel about it, like, because we've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah,
and we've done, like, both of us have done so many different like experiments in this space. And what I like about your channel and what we've always talked about even offline is like, never really do the same thing over and over again, because that's psychosis. It doesn't make any sense. There's so many channels out there.
You've helped me a lot with that.
No, I appreciate it. But it's like there's like a thought where you're like, oh, I'm just gonna make videos like Peter McKinnon. I'm just gonna sit here and talk about the new camera, and like, or I'm gonna try and make videos like Gerald or whatever it is. But I don't think the audience wants that anymore. I think there's so much data out there just from like a casual observation, looking at things. You know, like we talked about this. I looked at this like 2 years ago. Where I was just like, I don't think I can keep making camera videos anymore. I actually think it was like the GH6 that will like kind of like push me over the edge, because I was like, because there was things about it I didn't like, and I was like, well, they just totally they missed the boat on this. It doesn't even have the new phase detect from the S5 and stuff like that.
And it had
like,
that weird dynamic range boost setting.
Yeah, whatever.
Why do I have to worry about that?
No, there's just like a bunch of stuff where I was like, this was supposed to be the one that I was like waiting for a long time, and like obviously the S5 like sort of became what I kind of thought what a new GH series should possibly be. But at that point, I saw in my videos, I just kept saying none of this stuff matters anymore, but I kept making the videos. So I was like, what the hell am I doing, right? Like, because I haven't even now, like that Sony review recently, like I got to the point where I'm like, every lens is fucking good now, guys. Like, what do you want from me here?
Yeah,
like,
it is.
Like, it is. It's like, you know, we're gonna argue about like the 20 extra millimeters on the 24-70 versus the 24-50. What is the point of this video?
Yeah,
it really just has to come down to now, and this is where I think we're gonna see like the sort of separation from legacy camera YouTube into this new generation, which is already kicking ass, which is just people that fucking know what they're doing. They know how to make like I got a thumbs up for the bubbles. Oh, fireworks too. This is just perfect for this rant, because we're gonna see the people that like really fucking know what they're doing and can make beautiful images. And that'll just, the whole thing now will be like aspirational cinematography, where you're just inspired to make things and you're not thinking about equipment or gear. The only thing you're thinking about is like, what's the easiest path with the least resistance to make beautiful shit like this?
Yeah.
Like I think Lewis Potts is a really good example of that, where like I don't really give a shit about the gear that he's talking about. I just want to know his thought process on like how to achieve that look. And I'm not watching his videos like, I'm gonna go buy that new weird, you know, diffuser that he got, or I need to get a Komodo. I'm looking at him like, okay, that's interesting. So like, I should be pushing the light this way, and I should be bouncing it like that, and I should be doing. And I'm learning. I'm not learning to buy shit. Where so many channels are still trying to like push a product on you. Here's what I think about this camera. I just don't care anymore. Like I don't.
Well, you don't need to care anymore, and that's like the message people like you and me and others need to push forward, and we already are. Which is really cool, because like instead of just talking about specs and all that crap that really doesn't matter because everything's good, we can actually learn new techniques and try to make stuff. I think there's a fear though of like, at least for me personally, there's a fear of stepping into these like creative projects. I've just tried to blast through it and make stuff and, you know, try my best to get better. But it's like, oh well, if I put Blackmagic full frame in my title, that will get more views. So it's like, how do you overcome that? And there are some creators who don't do any sort of gear search stuff in their titles, and they're getting great views and stuff too. So it's like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Gerald and I talk about this all the time. We always go back and forth, and like Chris Howe, we talk about it. It's like everybody in this, we've talked about it. This idea, like there is a bit of like, there's something happening in titles right now, and specifically thumbnails. And I don't like to get too in the weeds on the strategy thing, because I just like think so much of this is like even just a lottery of timing.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? Where like it really wasn't that your video was good or bad. It was just the sort of cultural climate on YouTube of what people were into in that very, very specific moment. That is hard. Yeah, exactly. And like sometimes you can predict it. You know, like right now, it would be really smart to do like Dune type content and what, like, and that kind of thing. And right now, it's really smart to probably put up like Nikon and Red stuff, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So there's things that you can sort of get into from the zeitgeist side of stuff, like you said, like throwing black magic in a video title can help, because there is still a market out there of people that are genuinely just interested because they're just sheep consumers, like sorry, that are just like truly like which you can completely like kind of exploit and tap into. But I think the trick with that is to keep yourself sane, is like get them on the click, but then surprise them with like something more meaningful. So I'm okay, right? Like I'm okay with like I'm totally okay with like hooking somebody in because it's got Sony or it's got whatever in that like initial thing that they see on the thumbnail. But I don't want to deliver them a video they've seen probably 60 times before they got to that click anyways.
Okay.
Then I think you're easily replaceable, because it's really easy to do those types of videos. And then, you know, I've been talking to a couple people about this offline too, where like this idea of like all this, like people being afraid of AI and whatnot. There's also this side where like even the reason I'm doing this video, this AI can't do what we're doing right now yet. You know what I mean? It's like no one can just like be a person and talk artificially. Like no one, thankfully yet. Like I'm sure it'll come at some point, but there's a period right now where in this like fear stage of beta with AI that I think it's very important for us, for longevity's sake, to really start showing personality. Like really just show who you are and like what you're into, what you like to make, rather than like just solely opinions or like spec dumps or like here's the, you know, I'm gonna do a camera test or whatever it is. Like the people that will sort of get ahead through this next little area of like filmmaking YouTube are the people that know what they're doing, like the Lewis Potts. But Lewis is also only Lewis. No one can make a video like him. Right?
Exactly.
We can all pretend and like make cool shit. Like here's another thing. It's like I think it's starting to get really easy to make stuff look good, right? Like it's getting because cameras are so good
and lights are so small now.
And lights
too,
are
man.
so small, and also everything's so cheap. Like I said that in that, and like the fact that you can get that Sony lens with the fucking with the focus breathing compensation, you can like pull off focus racks and moves that like filmmakers would have dreamed of even like a couple years ago. Like this is insane.
DaVinci's free, MacBooks are cheap. It's like,
so
dude,
how the hell do we break through all this bullshit? You got to have a personality. Like Gox is a really good example too, where like his production value is really high. And it's hard to replicate that. But if we tried really hard, we could get that look and that feel, but we'd never have the sensibility of his personality. And that ultimately, I think, is what makes his stuff so successful. Because he could put up videos on his second channel that are just him walking around Spain or Italy or whatever. And he's not talking at all. But he's hit this echelon of like the audience knows who he is. And you can kind of envision that him behind the camera doing that stuff. And not that there's anything particularly super special about what he's capturing. It's just that it's Gox. That's why people want to watch it.
Yep.
And that is such a like hard place to get to. And it's extremely hard for us who came up and like kind of had our moments in the gear revolution, because we got to like break out of that sentiment, because I think a lot of people still watch us as like, oh yeah, Patrick made like Lumix videos and that's why I like to watch him, or you know, Zach made those retro camera videos and that's why I like to watch him. What the hell, he's making commercials now? What's going on here? It's like you
have to grow though. You have to break out of that. If I mean, you don't have to, but it's like, why wouldn't you want to? I guess.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like you can, like I've talked to YouTubers too. Like you can totally just ride this into the sunset. Like who knows how fucking long this lasts.
True.
And, you know, I could have easily just kept the main channel, just doing like Fuji videos and like going on the trips and doing all the embargo stuff and whatnot, and maybe that would have been fine. Maybe it even might have been.
But then you made the Batman video.
But that's the thing. It's like then you do something like that, and you're like, whoa, hold on a second. This made me so much happier, like as a human being, and clearly people liked it more too. Like there was just like the response was just beyond anything I'd ever done before, and then it was repeatable to an extent too. Like I could kind of do it with multiple different things, and so then you start to realize, okay, well that's like maybe that's my thing with YouTube. But then you get to a point like where I'm at now, where I'm like, I got to reinvent that again too, because now everyone and their mother's making videos like those ones too. So how the hell do you break through all of that? And it might be right, it might be wrong. I don't know, because I'm still experimenting with it. But I still think everything's going to go back to like. My overarching thought with YouTube is it's still a personality platform. The best things that I watch are often just people like us sitting and shooting the shit and talking and just kind of stream of consciousness, spewing things out. Because I really think that, like, you know, cinematography and making things look good is starting to get, you know, like completely democratized and very easy to replicate. You know, Instagram Reels and that stuff, like it's so easy to just copy the thing that you saw before and actually do well, which is sad. Like it's crazy how you can just like scroll through Instagram Reels and see like 7 versions of the exact same template. And everyone loves it. And every single one of them has 20, 30,000 likes. But if you told me who any of those people were, I could never fucking tell you. But I know who you are because I know you from your videos and I know your personality. And that's like more than anything. I remember people. I don't remember specifically their work. on YouTube, I always remember the person that made that thing. When I
Totally.
think of Lewis, I'm not always just thinking of like great images. I'm thinking of his quirkiness and how he's kind of silly and he's goofy. Like that to me is what really draws me to a channel like his and yours, where it's just like I know the person more than I know what they're capable of. If we made shit, like I arguably, I think if we like didn't even make stuff that looked nice, I like to believe that people would still watch the shit out of us, because I don't think it's really the production value that people are fully after. I think it's just the takes. It's the way we kind of approach things and the way we talk about stuff. And that to me
it's
is
like
go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think like when I look at your stuff specifically, it seems like you don't care what people think of you in a really good way, where it's like you're gonna say what you feel. Like you're not trying to protect like some sort of like company brand image or like worry about what a sponsor is gonna think or whatever. It's like, and I think that's what's attractive about your material is it's like, oh, I know I can go to Patrick for like no bullshit advice on cameras, filmmaking, photography, and movies and stuff too. So I don't know, man. I think, yeah, there's that level of authenticity that's amazing. And I think something weird is just happening with YouTube where like it was super raw, chill, like daily Casey Neistat stuff 2015, 2016. And then it swung super hard like Mr. Beast, and everybody was like, oh, we got to go balls to the wall and everything. I'm hoping now that it's kind of like the pendulum swinging toward the middle, where it's like it seems like there's a resurgence of more chill, long form, like honest, authentic content. So I'm curious to see how that affects our niche as well. I don't know.
Yeah, because
we'll see.
I've worked with a couple editors now on the main channel, and like my biggest feedback always is slow down. Like slow down with the cuts. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like that's because we're in a generation, or we're part of like a group now, that the editing scene within YouTube and like in the internet is really gotten like Mr. Beastified to like a really, really like bad degree.
Yeah.
And that's why I think there's this course correct happening, specifically like within camera YouTube, because like, you can go into like, I try to watch like other niches. Like I watch like airplane crash reenactment videos with Flight Simulator and stuff. Like I watch like really weird, like, because you know why? Because they get like 3-4 million views, and they're like long form 45-50 minute like documentaries of guys just literally screen recording Flight Simulator with a voiceover of like what happened, why this plane crashed, and you're like, this is crazy. It's crazy, and it's like a whole genre. There's like thousands of channels that do it, and all of them like perform quite well, and you're like, okay, that's like an interesting niche because it's not zippy, it's not fast. You might as well be watching like traditional TV, like a Discovery Channel show or something like that, or a reality show. And now like you're seeing these like long form versions of like people going to like, you know, Tokyo, and they'll do like a 55-minute street photography walk around video with like down tempo music, which is completely in contrast to, you know, you see a lot of these things where it's like the first 30 seconds is just text and
insane.
Just, here's coming up, here's what's happening 6 minutes from now, and you know, right, and you're like, holy shit, I just digested what the title of this video even was,
bro.
And I don't even. Yeah.
one thing I hear in like so many YouTube videos right now, and I'm guilty of this as well, is like, oh, don't worry, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Totally. Yeah.
Like that little phrase. We'll get there in a second.
More on that later. Yeah.
Dude. Exactly. Yeah. Constantly.
Absolutely. And that kind of also comes from like scripting videos or not scripting videos to an extent, because like there's something you just can't teach people, which is like the ability to riff like this, right?
Yeah.
It's such a key skill for YouTube, because I don't think I could actually do this if every video I had to sit down and write a script for it. Because like so much of what I come up with is like in the moment, on the fly, off the cuff. It's like been sitting in my brain for a month or months or weeks or days or whatever, how much time I had to kind of put this thing together. And the only hurdle I really find with YouTube is just like sitting down and pressing this record button is like painful. It's painful.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's like most of the time for me, it's like I don't actually want to do this. It's like going to the gym or something.
Totally.
Like, I have to like force my body to move toward camera, hit record.
Totally.
So weird.
It's very weird because we love it and we love the reaction to it, and it feels so damn good when you're done, which is really funny. And I guess that's sort of like the gym too. Like afterwards, like the relief of it is really great, but you don't really still like it the next day. And so this always feels, and I don't know if we ever get to a point where like we will ever really enjoy this as like an activity, this specific part of it, like the actual sitting down to record the video. Like the hardest part for me is like everything leading up to it. It's like, what the hell is this video about?
Yeah.
What's the title going to be? Do I have a thumbnail in mind? Should I just riff this one? Should I wing it? Should I write a script? This whole week I've been thinking about Dune. I'm like, what the hell's my angle on this video?
Yeah.
'Cause it's like, you know why? Because it's like just something just hasn't clicked right for me with it yet. And like I've been going nuts on Twitter, and it's probably been the best week of my life on that platform in terms of like engagement.
Yeah.
But all those little things are like a Band-Aid before the thing I really want to make about it. And
Yeah.
I'm like distracting myself with like these little wins, these little like ego fucking boosts of like, oh yeah, people liked it. People like my take on
And
it.
avoiding your video.
But I'm avoiding the video, which is like everything I should be doing. And instead of like making the video, I'm like emailing Greg Fraser and I'm emailing Denis Villeneuve and I'm like trying to come up with excuses that why I haven't cracked what I need to make with the video. But that's all it is. I just legitimately haven't cracked it. But then there's a big part of me, like you just said, is probably all I should do is just hit the fucking record button.
Yeah,
and just
you have
see
all
what,
the pieces.
Just see what comes out. Like now, and here's it's like you get to a point where you've done this enough times. Like man, like it's not like I've been doing YouTube for a couple years. Like I've been at this since I was a kid. Like like
Same.
high school, dude. Like high school, I've been playing with YouTube, and I'm over 30 now. So like we're talking 10, 15 years I've been doing YouTube-esque or adjacent things. Like it's always been on my mind. Like one day I'll be a YouTuber. One day I'll have this. And then you still don't know. Like I still to this day don't really fucking know how any of this stuff works. I don't have a system. I don't have, you know what I mean? Like I don't have like a proper studio or like I've been doing these studio tours with Gerald and I'm just like, dude, I want none of this. Like every studio I go to, I'm like, I want nothing to do. Like I'm so fascinated with it and they're beautiful, amazing people that we're meeting. But from a setup standpoint, I'm like, this is a job. This is me working at Subway. This is me working at State Farm Insurance or something. This is not at all what I want.
Yeah.
So the argument, or sorry, the internal battle of like, is this a hobby or is this really what I want to do with my life? Is like the biggest fucking struggle with YouTube too. Where like maybe this just isn't what I'm supposed to do.
It's so well, it's funny too because like filmmaking inherently is problem solving. So we have chose an interest in a career that is like, I wake up and solve problems all day. Willingly.
Yeah. Like what?
But like you said, the payoff is so amazing. And I think for me, like one of the best things about it is the community. Because like having like you and other YouTuber friends, like seeing people in Discord, comment sections, even like this whole like Nikon Red news today. I woke up, first thing I did was text two of my friends that use Reds, and I was like, bro, you guys are Nikon shooters now.
I literally texted Spencer Sakurai. Like I somehow woke up at like right when Insta Jared, like the Jared whatever his name is, like the owner, like had posted it on Instagram, and then I saw the actual press release, and Spencer was the first person I thought of, right? And I just texted him, and he woke up, and he was like, "Fuck, I'm so sad. Fuck."
That is like, to me, I love that stuff.
I love
That's
that
what makes it worth it.
for sure. Like I don't think we'll like to go back to this whole like this idea of just like camera YouTube and filmmaking YouTube and the transition we're in. Like I don't think I'll ever lose the like nerdy techie person that's in me that's always going to be interested in whatever the new thing is. There's like, even though I'll preach and I'll spew that none of this shit matters, I think I've even talked about this in videos before. There's something about the inspiration that comes from the new thing that I think has merit and value. Yeah. So even that 24 to 50 lens, probably I never would have like bought it or thought about it if I was on the outside of that. Like if I was on the outside looking in as an audience member, I probably would have like instantly dismissed that lens. But then it's in hand and I'm playing with it and it's new and it actually has features that I was interested in. And all of a sudden I'm making shots and I'm doing things like just screwing around that I wouldn't have done that day if I didn't have that new thing. So then that value of just the new thing inspiring you and getting you jazzed to fucking make something, that's really cool. Like if Nikon made a cinema camera, I would want my hands on it because I'd probably just be inspired to make the thing I probably should have made with the A7 IV already.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like this like kick in the ass of like the new thing. It's like an excuse to create something that we have a hard time doing without the excuse. It really should just be I want to make something and I have everything to literally make an entire movie just in this room.
Yes.
But I'm not making the movie, am I? Right? I'm waiting for some excuse to do it, which is so sad. It's like kind of sad. And I think that there's like merit to that like just shiny new toy syndrome where even if the honeymoon wears off in a couple weeks, you're going to make a lot of cool shit in those 2 weeks. So really everybody should just be on a good gear loaner program. so we could all just like make the things we want to make because it's just at least it's with the new camera. I was talking to Lee Zavitz about this where like, you know, if like Sony came out with like an FX3 Mark II, we were like, do we really even need it? Like, do we actually need that? We all say we want it.
Yeah.
But the only reason we'd probably get it is to stay relevant, right? Like we're just trying to stay relevant with the zeitgeist in the scene of like being able to put that in the title of the short film that I made. It's kind of like it's like getting a bit of budget. It's like getting like a promotion budget for your piece. Just the fact that you shot it with that new camera.
Yeah.
even the only reason I really kind of agreed to take the 6K full frame is like there was like 20% was like curiosity of like what's this camera really about. But the other part of it was like, I want to make some things right now, but I need like a little bit buzzier camera than the stuff that I already own, because I've milked the A7 IV, I've kind of milked the FX30, or YouTube has in general. What's a weird off camera that I can just kind of play with? I want a relationship with Blackmagic. Let me just reach out to them. Actually, they reached out to me. Let me have a conversation with them and start playing with this camera. And on top of that, it's like inspired me a little bit to make things that I probably wouldn't have made with other cameras that I have right now.
That's funny because for me, like, I've had a relationship with Blackmagic for a little bit, and like, I know we're kind of going back to this, but I have to. Yeah. Like, I made a video about their original pocket camera because that camera was just really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And I had like a conversation like this with one of their guys there, and I just like straight up asked them about making a cube camera, and he was just like, he kind of like avoided the question. Obviously, he can't tell me. I was like, oh, maybe that means they're gonna make one. And then this thing came out. I was like, are you serious? So for me, I've had the opposite reaction to you. So like they sent me this, and I was excited about it, but like I have struggled to like want to like make something like a short film with it, just because of its quirks and like the no autofocus and stuff like that. I've got some really cool frames with it, and the image is insane, but like with my FX30, I feel like I can just go out and make something like so fast because it's like so convenient.
It's so convenient that it makes you feel shitty because it's so easy to use. That's what I found with that camera. Like, there's something interesting about like not having any like sort of resistance push back on you, where it's almost like it's too good, and you're like, oh shit, it's entirely up to me to make this thing. Like I used the A7 IV for that 24 to 50 video, and I'm like, man, that sensor in this camera is so freaking nice. This A7 IV sensor, when you start looking at the footage, because it's that oversampled 7K, and again, like, it's funny because like I'm always like, the specs don't matter, and they don't. But like, there's a fucking look to this camera that I'm like, we're sleeping on this A7 IV. This is a really, really nice sensor.
Yeah,
and then
dude.
You look at like the footage that comes out of this full frame Blackmagic, and you're like, okay, well, I just shot like a doc on the Mini LF, and there's no way anyone would really be able to tell much of the difference between these two cameras.
No way. It looks amazing.
It looks amazing, and there's like a part of me that's like, if I was doing more corporate work, or if it had autofocus, it would be like the perfect like YouTube like talking head camera. Because my God, it would put your just this kind of setup into like an upper echelon of just quality, like just like a little edge over most people's like Sony setup, that people would like instantly look at your footage and be like, whoa, this looks freaking like this guy's shooting on an Ari or something, right? This is
it's
crazy.
Definitely like a small edge up on mirrorless cameras, I think, because even like, so I have really red skin tones, and it's like hard for me to get my skin to look good on Sony cameras. Like, it's way better than their old cameras, but when I use this Blackmagic, I'm like, oh, I look like decent now. This is sick.
Well, it's funny. It's almost like microphones too. Like, some mics are just like suit your voice, and I think some like baked in color sciences of cameras suit certain skin tones nicer. And like, it's all subjective and it's all taste. Like, even the stuff where I'm like, I really like the A7 IV sensor. I work with people that shoot on A7S III and FX3 that don't like the A7 IV sensor. They think it's like a little too muddy, or it leans a little too brown. And I feel the opposite, because we mix them so much. And when I get in the grade, I'm like, I think the A7 IV looks nicer. But you're splitting hairs. Like, it's such a no one on the audience side of things. So I actually got a scoop. Apparently, Steven Soderbergh shot his new movie Presence on the A9 III, the new global shutter. Yeah, entirely on a 14 millimeter lens with a gimbal. So the movie's shot like a POV. Right?
Oh, dude!
And so he literally wore slippers apparently in this house. It's shot in a house. It might even be one take, but I'm not entirely sure. But basically it's shot as a POV. And he did an interview with I can't remember what website it was, but I kind of deduced what was sort of going on. And I was talking to a guy on Twitter about it. But anyways, he's like, we're using a new DSLR with a sensor in it that's never existed before, and it's a Sony camera.
It has to be the A9 III.
It has to be the A9 III. And then he's like, it was on a gimbal, and it was like full frame, and he used a 14 millimeter lens. I'm like, it has to be the A9 III. And so that's interesting in that, like, the whole like global shutter side of all this stuff, like these little like improvements on quality of life. That's where I think we kind of go from now, where it's just like little things here and there that just make the shooting experience a little bit easier, a little bit nicer. I think global shutter is probably going to be what most cameras kind of go towards moving forward as it is, because we're figuring out the whole dynamic range and whatnot.
It's going to have to be, because like with Sony taking that leap forward, like other companies are going to be like, oh crap, like we got to figure this out.
We have to figure this
out. Kind of like
totally.
Lumix with autofocus. Like, because for me, I feel like if I were to make my dream camera that would just like get the job done, it would basically be an FX3 with internal NDs and I guess global shutter. I don't really care that much,
really care.
but
Yeah, because
it'd be cool.
The rolling shutter is it's so fast. The readout's so fast on these cameras now. Like when I play with the S5 II, or if I play with the full frame Blackmagic, like the Jello is just it's brutal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if there's one thing, like forget the body on that camera, like that rolling shutter is rough. Like I would be like remiss to sort of like try and dance around it in my video that it's not, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The thing is, I shoot handheld. I like a handheld look, and I noticed when I was shooting with Gerald yesterday with it, like just like the micro jitters aren't just micro jitters, they're micro Jello jitters.
Yes.
Which looks
yeah,
way
exactly.
worse. Like I'm okay with like a jitter, like a shake, but I don't want a jello-y shake. And that's what I noticed with the A7 IV, and I also noticed it with the Blackmagic full frame. So as much as I don't care about global shutter, like if you play with an A7 III or an FX3, like the readout, even an FX30, I've never really had like a rolling shutter issue with that camera.
Yeah, same.
But like that is like the fact that like solder, like these filmmakers that are now adopting the cameras that we kind of make fun of. Because like we always say, we don't want another hybrid mirrorless.
Yeah.
But maybe that is sort of the way forward. Like I don't know, because it's like, you know, the Burano's a really good example too, where like we always thought they would add cinema features to these smaller cameras, but what they're doing is they're making big cinema cameras smaller. It's they're going the other way. They're kind of taking like a Venice and going down to like bring mirrorless features into the Venice, compact it down a little bit, and like that's the new sort of like mid-range cinema camera.
Yeah.
But it's $30,000. And really, at the end of the day, will that $30,000 Burano look a whole lot different than an FX3 or an A7 IV or anything? Probably not.
But the
from everything I've
usability of it.
But the usability of it, and when you're on a big set like that, all those little things fucking really start to add up. The I/O, the XLR, the time code, the gen lock, all that kind of stuff is like really, really important when you got like 30 people around you and like a and like a 6-person camera team, like just camera, right? Like they just deal with camera that's like fucking around with it. Because when you show up with an A7 IV and the audio guy's like, well, you only have 3.5 mil. What the fuck am I supposed to do with this?
Dude, I wish I could sit in on a Sony meeting or something where they're talking about their camera divisions and just hear what their priority list is, because like me and you are in this world of like YouTube. We've been immersed in it. We're both kind of in the filmmaking world too, and they're becoming more like together.
Yeah.
But I'm curious like what their priority is on like making a camera like the Burano, which is way out of reach for like pretty much everybody on our platform, versus making an FX3 with internal NDs and stuff. Because like in my mind, an FX3 Mark II with NDs, global shutter would sell like 1 million copies. I have no idea what the number would be. Versus a Burano selling however many that is. Like
like I don't honestly I don't know the ins and outs of it either. Like I can only sort of speculate that like my take on Sony is like corner every single market. Like just get a camera. Like it's confusing and it's annoying as a consumer, because you got to get like an Excel document out to be like, that one has that, but this camera doesn't have that. You know what I mean? You're kind of playing. You're finding like, what compromise am I willing to go with here? And that's the kind of thing with cameras in general. Like, what compromise am I okay with? When it came between Lumix and Sony, for me, it just like completely came down to autofocus. I think everything else on the Lumix side, I'm like 100% on board with, but it really came down to autofocus. And and I actually prefer that FX30, FX3 style body. I just think it's a more conducive like workflow kind of like happy medium between a hybrid mirrorless and like a dedicated video camera. Like you said with the handle, even on your little like old Sony camera there, it's like throw the audio handle on an FX30 and that's it's pretty much there. Aside from like it being weird to monitor with an external monitor and stuff like that, it's there. Like we're so close. Like if Lumix had come out with like an EVA 2, like the EVA 1, like the that camera, like if they come out with like an EVA 2 with like the S1H like sort of internals, that's a great camera. Like and put phase detect in it. Like that to me was like, and trust me, I've said this like literally to engineers from them. I was just like, bring that camera back. Like bring that EVA. You have the
what
body.
happened to that?
Put the internals in it. Like I don't know what their sort of plan is moving forward. I have no like sort of insight on that. But I trust me when I say like everyone, just like Blackmagic, is telling them exactly what they need to make. So this brings us to the whole big thing now, because Nikon buys red. And to me, like, there's a big part of me that doesn't give a shit at all. Like, honestly, they're two brands that are like so on the peripheral of what I care about as a filmmaker, as a cinematographer at this point. Like, I'm so beyond thinking I need a red to make films. You know what I mean? And and Nikon has been just so under the radar for me in terms of the offerings that they have at the price points, and like just the industry's like perception of them in general. It's not worth even like looking into it, because like no one gives a shit, right? Like they just don't. And so there's a core like cult of red users and I'm sure there's even a core cult of Nikon users.
I think
and
so.
I'm interested to see what happens when both of those sort of merge, because in my opinion they contrast. They're at odds with each other.
They're so different.
No one on the Nikon side, like driving Subarus and shooting wildlife photos, gave a shit. Gave a shit about, like no, they weren't thinking about Red, and nobody on the Red side was thinking about Nikon at all. Like,
yeah, so
I heard that like is it the Z8 or the Z9's like their big one, like the crazy like it's basically a cinema camera and like a mirrorless body.
The
Is that the
Z9 is their one that has the built-in grip that's like huge. It shoots
huge.
8K.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's the one.
The Z8 is like basically 95% of that camera, but I actually have it over here. But
nice.
It's a condensed body, so it's like the body feels like a 5D Mark III. It's big and chunky, but the Z9 is like really big. It's got the extra grip on it.
But I've heard, like, I think Lee did a video on it, and I remember seeing like people commenting, being like they had ditched their Komodo for that camera, like they had ditched it for that Nikon because the image quality is
crazy
apparently,
camera.
Yeah, like apparently the image quality is just phenomenal.
Yeah, dude,
but
I
there's,
just
like,
shot a commercial on it last month, and it was insane.
There's like a branding. There's a branding thing with Nikon where I'm like, who's taking anything seriously? If a client's like, we're shooting this like commercial for Honda, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna shoot on the Nikon Z9. They're like, what?
Yeah, there's a disconnect there that's huge.
There's a huge disconnect, and you can't discount like the way the industry sort of views cameras. You can't, right? Like, if you get to the Hollywood level, it's Ari or Sony. That's pretty much it. Or you're shooting film. Like, you're getting a few people like independent productions and whatnot. Like, they're shooting, a lot of documentaries shoot on Red still. Most true crime documentaries on Netflix are all shot on V Raptors and whatnot now. So there's different sub markets of the industry that like accepts certain types of cameras as like sort of like, this is the one we use for these types of productions. But no one is talking about Nikon. Like, you'll have much better luck getting a Canon on a big shoot.
So maybe this is their like strike back to try to like rebrand themselves like to our brains, because like I'm trying to think of where this goes, because it could be like I see two avenues. I'm sure there's more options, but one is like they bought Red, and like Red still kind of exists how it is, where they're making Red cameras and they're making Nikon cameras, but Nikon owns all of it. Because I can't see a Red camera with a Nikon logo on it. Like, I feel
definitely
everybody
not.
would laugh.
I can't see Nikon making Canon mount cinema cameras. So that's a whole other thing. So where does RF go with all the Komodos and stuff? Like, now there's like this, like, there's going to be a weird period now. It's so hard to tell what the hell they're planning to do. In my opinion, I feel like it's Nikon buying the RAW patent more than buying a camera company. Because
honestly,
like, I saw some numbers. Apparently, like, the annual revenue for Red was like 150 million, right? And the annual revenue for Nikon right now is 200 billion. So we're talking pennies. They got this company for pennies.
Gosh.
So like, it's a drop in the pan for these guys of buying this company. And I would argue, like, from all the conversations I've had with other camera manufacturers, the Ari and stuff like that specifically, no one worries about Red these days. Okay. Sony's not thinking about it. Ari's not thinking about it. Like, even the V Raptor and stuff like that, even though it has like a little kind of small sub-market, in the grand scheme of things, it's a flash in the pan. It's like less than 1% of people are using those cameras in the global sort of pool of the camera market.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's not like there's a bit of conversation that I've been seeing today where it's like, oh, I can't wait to see what Sony does. And they're like, I don't give a shit. They don't care.
They're fine.
They're fine. They're fine, because there's years, and also just the amount of money that Sony can throw at a new body, like, probably just out of spite, right? Like, if they just wanted to, like, if the Brano's like totally a spite camera towards so many different things. Just like, hey, by the way, this one has internal, it's got everything you idiots have been asking for. Yeah. And it's like a quarter of the price of a Venice, and basically it's a Venice, right? Like, here you go. Like, what do you guys want from it? And now we're probably going to up the FX3 and the 30 too, to give you all the crap that you guys are asking for. Like, there's no camera manufacturer that can keep up. And on top of that, every other camera manufacturer is using Sony sensors. The Lumix is all Sony sensors.
Literally.
And so, like, there's a disadvantage to these companies just inherently off the bat. And perhaps the most interesting thing is, like, maybe what Nikon can do with, like, the R&D of manufacturing, like, interesting bodies, right? Like, not that those are, like, arguably I really wish that, like, Blackmagic and Red had kind of got together and just been like, let's, like, just corner the budget market and the higher end market and just do everything, right?
Yeah.
Like the Komodo and the Blackmagics are like the Blackmagic should be making Komodos, honestly. Like why they're not. And like no one wants the Z-Cam either because it's like that's all quirky and stupid
I
too.
refuse to try a Z-Cam.
Yeah, like that's another one. Like that might as well be a Nikon too. I'm just like I saw like so many like Gerald did a video where it's like, well, yeah, sometimes the battery dies, then you have to use this recovery software to like bring your file back.
It's like immediately
done. I'm gone.
Will not.
Get out of here, right?
Dude,
like I can just barely get over like a camera overheating. Get lost if I have to like recover files when the battery dies.
That means hey, it's not worth using.
Absolutely.
I'll use something
and
else.
even the Komodo, like when Spencer tells me he's like, oh yeah, if you don't use the right like SDI cable, this camera can fry. I'm like, okay, well, no, I'm good. I don't need like a beta camera. I don't want you to be part of this like beta group when I'm when I'm with a client. It's like,
and
by the way,
it's damn expensive.
Totally,
like,
they're not even.
I'm
cheap.
not buying that. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I don't know where it's gonna go, but like you said, like Sony's already so like clawed into every corner of the market. It's like they don't have to like play down. Like they're already up here. Like this is Nikon like trying to play up. So I guess I'm excited to see what happens. It's really funny and really interesting. So
I mean, it's good. It's good. It's nice to have some like fun news, like something exciting happening. It's kind of like when Vision Pro came out with the tech scene, where it's like we just haven't had exciting tech in a long time.
Yeah.
Where something's just like, well, you know what? This is just interesting. Whether you like it, you want to have it or not, is kind of irrelevant. It's at least
different.
something interesting and different is happening. And like I like that it was like almost impossible. Like I had heard rumors that maybe Apple was looking to buy Red, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like honestly, at this point, I feel like Apple should buy Blackmagic because just bring Resolve into as a Mac app, like combined with Final Cut or something like that.
That'd be so sick.
Yeah, it'd be so great. And also like the biggest problem is like that RAW patent. That's the thing I'm most interested about with Nikon owning Red now because they just have the internal compressed RAW patent, right? So the only that's which is kind of interesting because Nikon had gotten around it in that lawsuit with Red.
Obviously, Blackmagic found a way around it too, but it's like, does Nikon buying Red like kind of eliminate some things about that patent where like what if Sony now could be like we're gonna make SRAW or whatever?
That's what that thing is like. I almost see it as like Nikon buying the patent more than I do buying the camera company. I think they just want that because like they had that lawsuit. We never knew the ins and outs of it. I've seen a couple of videos trying to break down what actually happened, but like the Z9 and maybe the Z8 too both do internal compressed RAW, which no other company can do because of that Red patent. And so whatever they did behind the scenes, clearly now we know they were just like, well, screw you, we'll just buy your company. Like that's obviously what happened. Like whatever like the deal was that they made in that court case clearly spearheaded the discussion to like, oh, you're only worth 150 million, whatever the deal was. You're only worth X amount of money for us to just shut you up and we can just start putting RAW in our cameras. See ya. And on top of that, we're going to own a cinema camera company. Perfect. Seems like a bit of a no-brainer at this point.
Yeah.
And so like that to me is like what Nikon was trying to do is like now if they, they're so late to the game with video. They've been so late to the game with video. Like they lost that T3i 5D era DSLR boom.
True.
Jump. They lost it to Sony too, and so now it's like long game, Hail Mary pass. Okay, let's own RAW video. We're the only fucking ones that can do internal RAW now. That's crazy. Yeah. We all want it. Aside from Blackmagic, which Blackmagic is doing a weird get around thing where they're actually compressing it and like they're doing some weird shit that's like, it's not technically RAW. It's still like a fake RAW, just like ProRes RAW, which is technically still fake RAW. Like you got to ask Gerald about it, but like all of that shit is like it's not fully RAW. It's like a light version of RAW that's giving you most of the controls that you want, but it's not what Red does. It's not a full 16-bit like RAW file that they can do. It's not even like XOCN, which like the external recorders on the Venice and stuff like that. Okay, so that's how they those, or even like ARRI RAW, all that kind of shit. Like those are like true RAW things that they've sort of figured out. So from a mirrorless standpoint, if Nikon's the only one that can shoot internal RAW properly from any budget level, that's kind of a big deal. That's like a lot of there's enough people out there that could get like swayed by that bullshit. Because I could go down a rant and say like I don't fucking care about RAW video at all anyways, because I can't tell you the last time I shot RAW aside from B-RAW on the Blackmagic. But I'm not connecting, I didn't do that video on the Creator and I was like, oh, I need to shoot on a Ninja 5 now and shoot ProRes RAW with the Sonys. No chance. No, I don't. No, for what fucking reason? It's all I'm doing is adding noise and more bigger file sizes and a goddamn monitor on top of my camera with an SSD on it. Like, get out of here. For what? Because I could change my white balance? Get it right when you shoot it.
Dude, .jpeg.mov, baby.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's freaking crazy, dude. Yeah, I guess we'll just see. I think it doesn't really affect me. I'm just here for the drama and the chaos, and I'll sit back making my YouTube vids and just watching it.
I was joking. It's just like now, like Marquez is the most successful Nikon shooter in the world.
Yeah, literally, guys. The recording title in this call right now is MKBHD shoots Nikon?
I should just upload this just as that, just with that title, and then just leave it. Just fucking jump on the hype of everything. I'm sure there's like 1,000, like there's gonna be like 100 videos today of people talking about the Nikon and Red thing for sure.
Yeah, it was the first thing I saw when I woke up.
Totally, and that's the thing that like. When we talk about YouTube, like this is the kind of things where you can just sort of jump on the zeitgeist of things.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to do this. You have to be able to talk. And that's something that like a lot of people just can't figure out. And that's where you kind of get left behind on YouTube. Like if you don't have the right personality for this stuff, I just don't know if YouTube's the right avenue. And if you are good at editing and you are good at shooting, you can still do things, but I think it's like work with a YouTuber, work in a capacity where you can like build something with other people and like collaborate and create. Like I've been thinking about even with the main channel. It's like, do I turn that more into like a platform sort of channel where we have different posts and different people come on and like do different things and like different aspects of it. And it's not necessarily just my name, right? Like
that could be pretty sick.
It could be, but it's like associating yourself as like Zach or associating like to the world as Patrick, as opposed to like, you know, cinema, whatever fucking name things bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Where you can kind of just be like, it's a go-to resource is kind of interesting. Because it can alleviate what I keep thinking about. Is like I just don't always want to be the guy that has to make the video entirely by myself from start to finish, right?
I actually love that idea because you also don't have to do like a super boring brand. Like me and you have talked a little bit about Donut Media, one of my favorite channels and brands.
That's 100% what I'm thinking, like a Haggerty or a Donut Media.
Crammed with personality. Every host on that show is different, but still so fun to watch. And the interaction of that is incredible. So, yeah, I mean, I've thought about that kind of stuff, too. I don't know how that would even be possible, but, I mean, I don't hate that idea.
It's something to think about because I now believe and I feel confident that you can start a new channel any day of your life. We could start new channels tomorrow with whatever niche we're into. And because we've done all the work of what it's like to be a YouTuber for the last 15 years or whatever, we start at an advantage of not having to go through the bullshit of learning anything anymore. So if I start making watch videos tomorrow, if I start making car videos tomorrow, I'm not learning how to use a camera. I'm not learning how to title things and make YouTube thumbnails. I'm not learning how to edit. I'm not learning how to light. I know all of that. Now it's just applying it to the niche that I find interesting. Whereas yeah, go ahead.
Isn't it fun to think about like jumping into another niche too? Because think of like your skills with editing and shooting, where like if you started making watch videos tomorrow, immediately your quality in that niche is like upper echelon.
It's above everybody. Yeah. And so
that's why I want to get into gaming content because it's totally. I've never seen like a cinematic gaming video in my life.
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean, my first thought when I even did that Batman video was like, I've seen video essays. But I've never seen a guy make a video essay and then show you how to actually shoot the damn thing after.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like when I made that video, like at the halfway or like the end point, I was like, oh, by the way, everything we just learned, here's this little video, this Batman thing that I shot too. And then it's like, oh, fuck, he doesn't just know what he's talking about with the actual movie. He can do the thing too. And like that was like the shift where it was like, okay, that's a new angle on this kind of stuff where it's like finally I'm not just listening, because the thing with YouTube, I was talking to Gerald with this, like we're all just some guy, or some girl, or we're just some person, and we'll watch a video like it's the authority on that thing, like it's a stranger, right? And it's like today I was trying to figure out like the Lumix webcam, which I legitimately couldn't figure out. But
it's confusing on their cameras.
I'm watching just some guy, and he's telling me how to do it, and I'm like, does this guy really know how to do it? Like,
who is this?
Like, who is this guy?
Dude, it's so true. I have an idea for your Dune video.
Yeah.
Go to a playground and just like sit in a sandbox.
I'll do the pound. Like I'm trying to like summon a worm. Yeah.
You just have like a little earthworm and you just like set it in the sand.
Yeah.
But shoot it super macro.
Totally. That's, do you ever get in your head on this kind of stuff where you're like, oh, like I got to up the production value. Like I got to do this. I got to make this look so cool. And I got to do this so different. And like, we're just so against, like, maybe we've been doing it for too long. Where like, we're just bored. But like, sometimes I set up a talking head like this. I'm like, it's so boring. I'm just like, why don't I just go do something? Like, why don't I go sit in the field? Why don't I go, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of like, you're just like pushing yourself to like a level of production that I think is sort of irrelevant, which sucks, because I don't think it really makes all that difference. But for me, it's like I'm always like hurting myself or like holding myself back because I just don't think it's like interesting enough, even though I keep saying like this is probably all we need to do, like just fucking sit and talk and just be a human being. And like even with this Dune thing, it's like I have the script written and I'm like, well, am I gonna do it over footage or am I gonna sit and talk and like read the script out. You know what I mean? Like, so now I'm like fighting a battle in my head of like, okay, well, do I need a teleprompter? I'm going to read a script. And like, there's not enough footage of the movie, so maybe I do need to show myself because I'm going to run out of clips to show. And you're just like, but I'm overthinking it. Like, it's all of that crap. And like most of people on YouTube, we're just fucking overthinking everything.
So
like,
true.
It
that
just
was
sort of,
part of the Mr. Beastification, I think, of YouTube, is the overthinking, because you're like constantly comparing yourself to others, and like that bar that was set that's like too high. And I think, I don't know if it was you or somebody else, but someone told me like it's okay to like make really high effort videos and then also make like super chill, like easy videos. I mean, and sometimes the easy. I spent 2 months on a video recently, and it like bombed, dude. And then I like hit record sitting on my couch last week, and that video did super well. And I'm like, are you? Why, dude?
But so that's the thing, though, and I say this like when people always ask for like advice and things like that, which is fine. I'm always like, you just gotta fucking throw stuff at the wall. You just gotta try shit. You gotta try shit. And I'm at a point where, as much as I want to do like high production value, I have a limit. I have a limit of like effort, because I think there's so much of this stuff that is like too up in the air, right? There's too, like we've talked about, where like it's too like what the weather was that day. I don't know what it is. There's too many variables that are kind of outside of our control, that the idea of me spending like 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is on like one concept fucking scares the shit out of me, because I know
terrifying.
That like I've done really good videos that go absolutely nowhere, and I've done really like mediocre videos that go through the roof. And so you got to find this like middle ground where you're like, it's good enough that you're happy with it, because you're like, I didn't make a piece of shit.
Yes, right? That's a good way to say it, actually. Right? Yeah,
it's like it has to just hit your base level of like, this is worth uploading. Like my Avatar video is an example where it's like, I don't think that's a particularly great video, but it's 3 million views, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, it was just like me having a thought, seeing some things. I was like, let me just try this. But if that video bombed, it wouldn't have mattered, because it took me like an hour or two to put it together.
Right.
It literally was nothing to put that video together. And I'm not saying you got to do nothing, like just do like fucking half-ass garbage like this. Not that this is garbage, but like half-ass like bullshit, right? You don't have to go that extreme. You have to find that like middle point where it's like, I'm happy with this. It looks good. I'm saying things that have meaning. But if it doesn't do well, so be it. So be it. You have to, like, every person's going to have a different threshold for that, like of effort versus return. And for some people, that's like, you know, I watch and I have friends that do like really, really high polished hours, days and days and days editing for a couple thousand views, and they're happy and they're content. Yeah. It's not me. That to me, I'm like, I'm working too hard for too little return on the back end of it, that it doesn't make sense to me. Because, you know, when we went to Linus's studio and did the tour out there, like watching them do like ad reads and stuff like that. Like when I see an ad read, like you do this too. How do I make this interesting? How do I make this ad read like engaging? Where some of these channels, they just pull their phone out and like read the script. Like
it's honestly like so badass when I see that. I'm like, dude,
exactly.
You're just getting a bag, dude.
You're just getting a bag. Absolutely. And I'm like, holy shit. Like you can do that? Like that's allowed?
Dude, I see channels that like they intentionally read it monotone.
Oh,
like,
totally.
I intentionally don't care. I know you're going to skip this on your screen.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying to me, because I'm like, that's literally my main source of income right now. I'm about to become a father. I'm like...
Yeah. Congrats, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm like, where does that go? Like, if that goes away, that's... I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, too, because now you like we're learning, and it's like, you know, these commercial type things that you're doing, right? Now you know, like, okay, well, how do I find a more efficient way to do that, just in case it doesn't pop?
Yes.
Because there is definitely a way to do those and continue that trend and keep trying and experiment with that. Because maybe it's not just streamers. Maybe you do it about another YouTuber. Maybe you do it about a celebrity, right? Like
True.
you can keep that format going. But I think you can also find a way to do it off the cuff and quick. It's like maybe the next one's shot on an iPhone and you guys did it in an hour, and like that's part of the hook of it all too. And it's like that way, if it bombs, hey guys, we spent an afternoon on a Sunday fucking around. Who cares?
And made something sick.
And
like
made
that's
something
the thing.
dope.
Is like, if I come away from a project knowing I made something sick, like the Tim the Tap Man video, like performed terribly overall.
But you loved everything about it, and it looks cool, and it's fucking dope.
I had so much fun, and
Absolutely.
it made me better.
Yeah.
I got to shoot on a Nikon Red cinema camera.
Yeah.
Dude, it was so sick. But like I came away like still fulfilled. It was a little terrifying because like I had a sponsor behind the whole project with a budget and everything, but it's like I can't fully control that. Actually, that brings up another point I really wanted to talk to you about. So I've been talking to my buddy Connor, who's another YouTuber,
Yeah.
about this, but there's this weird tension with certain brands where they either want like to pay you based on a view count. It's like guarantee a certain amount of views, which like right away that's not interesting to me because that's just filled with anxiety.
Yeah.
But the other one is like them using like tracking links and stuff. Like I worked with a brand that was cool, and like I did 2 videos for them. One did like 100 and like almost 200K views. The other one did like 10K, and they don't want to work with me again because I didn't like convert enough people over to their platform. And I'm like, bro, but like when I watch NBA game, I don't buy a Chipotle burrito when I see the Chipotle commercial, and then the Burger King burger after that. It's like but that brand awareness, I thought that was the point.
Totally. Yeah, I mean that's the struggle with. Yeah, no, I agree because I first off, I will never do view guarantees on any platform, like because we've been talking about. There's too much of a lottery with it. I can't control it. I can give you a good estimation of like, here's all my best intention of this. Like, here's why this could possibly do well. Here's like previous results on similar topics. Here's other videos that other people have done in this niche, and like we got all the fucking right ingredients. But we don't know if the people are going to eat it. We just don't know. There's no way to sort of figure that out. And it's hard to shift a brand like, you know, these like service type brands. That's the problem, right? These like service type brands, whether it's like a music subscription site or stock video or even like a Riverside type thing where it's like people ultimately need to sign up for that product. Yeah. I think it's almost too easy for the brand to say, we need our metric to be those signups then. And so they look at it as like, okay, well, is Zach making people sign up for X service or not? They're not looking at it as like, are people thinking about that service? Which is challenging because we need to start looking, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. Like, I'm not trying to look for services where I got to specifically convert sales directly, but I want people to think about like Nanlite instead of Aperture next time they're going to shop for lights. Right? Yeah. Just like that should be the only real objective. It's not to sell like a Pavo Slim. It should just be like, oh yeah, Nanlite also. What's Nanlite doing? Like that's a brand that's out there.
Oh, I remember because they might go shopping 6 months after they saw your video. And be like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like Patrick talked about Nanlite. Yeah. And another thought I've had is like, a lot of times I won't buy something or subscribe to a service until I see multiple people I respect talking about it and saying that they use it and it's like actually good. Because it's like I want that confirmation from multiple successful like smart people. So it's like I don't see an ad read immediately. Like if it looks cool, I don't immediately go like subscribe to it.
For sure. Yeah, and also like on a video. Yeah, and like so much of this stuff is just like kind of like just pushed into a video that maybe isn't specifically about that thing, right? Yeah. Like Squarespace is the greatest example. Like Squarespace is totally just running an awareness campaign. That's all it is.
Dude, they're the Raid Shadow Legends of like the creative space.
Absolutely. And I think love them or hate them because it gets annoying because they're everywhere. But you can clearly tell that their game is not specifically just conversions. It's just like be the only one people think about when people have to make a website. Yeah, because I couldn't even tell you outside of Squarespace. Like, does Wix even still exist anymore?
I don't know.
have no idea.
I use Squarespace.
Yeah, exactly. I use Squarespace, and so like they're like the Kleenex of website builders. Like there's like 1,000 different probably like tissue brands, but everyone calls it Kleenex.
That's
so now
true.
It's like website building, Squarespace.
100%.
So the fact that these other brands like haven't really cracked that yet, like, you know, to an extent, like you could argue like Aperture is the lighting brand that sort of most people come to mind first thought, but that's also because they just like plummeted the market with everybody and got everybody talking about it. And so like when a company like Nanlite comes around or Godox, they can't go at it, or like even like a Jayoon or something, like they can't go at it and be like, make sure we move, you know, Pavo tubes or fucking little LEDs. Can we just get people to consider?
They need that awareness.
Just got to be let's just talk about Jayoon. Let's just talk about Nanlite or Godox or whoever it is, so that Aperture isn't just the only company that people think of. It's not just like Aperture and RE Sky panels. There's got to be more to that conversation, and that's what I think these companies should be thinking about. And it's what I've been trying to talk to them about too. And I even like to bring it back to cameras. That I even think is like the future of like camera YouTube in the sense of like promotion, where it's like I'm not necessarily interested in like doing a video specifically about like the full frame 6K. But I am interested in making a project with that camera, and it's sort of part of the experience of that project. Yeah. Whether it's like a doc or a short film or whatever it is, the video itself isn't specifically just about my thoughts on this camera. Maybe that's part of it, but it's like, hey, by the way, we used the 6K full frame on this. Here's some of the things I thought about, blah, blah, blah. I like this about it. I didn't like about it. But mostly I'm watching it like a Lewis video. I'm like, fuck, it just looks cool. That looks great. That looks awesome. I like this short. I like this commercial, whatever the hell it is. And the camera is just a catalyst for all of it.
Totally.
It's almost like a brought to you by, like it's powered by X brand or whatever.
I will say, like, in my experience, I think brands are becoming more keen to that idea, during this shift, because that's exactly what Nikon did with me.
Nice.
They originally like reached out to me and they were like, "Hey, we have the Z8. Would love to see like you review it. We'll loan it to you."
Yeah.
And I just kind of repitched to them, and I was like, "Well, actually, I've had this Tim the Tap Man idea in mind. Here's like the Dr. Disrespect one," and they were super cool about it. And they were like, "Yeah, just like give us like a 1-minute segment on your thoughts on the camera somewhere in your behind the scenes video."
Beautiful.
It's like, dude, that's so cool. Like, mad respect to Nikon for doing that. Blackmagic is actually similar, like, in my experience talking to
same,
them.
because like the same thing too. I was like, I'm already doing these like little mini docs on like local restaurants and stuff like that. And I was like, I want to play with that camera, so let me just do a few with them.
Exactly.
With this camera, because it's like I'm not interested in doing a full review, but I am interested in just like telling people what this camera is sort of capable of. And the only way I really know how to do that is to show people what it does, because I'm just like so beyond the like sit down and talk about specs. And
well, you're not
cameras,
gonna,
right?
You're really not gonna know what the full usability side of a camera unless you go out and do something with it that's more than just like filming some B-roll.
Totally.
Like you need to get in the weeds to figure out what it sucks at.
Oh, for sure. And that's the problem with like a lot of embargo videos, and like I really noticed it with the X106, where like it just like nothing really wowed me in terms of like what that camera can do.
Nope.
Nobody like. And more like I love everybody that got it, and they're all friends and whatnot. But like everyone just sort of like, because it's such an incremental like minor update over the last like 3 generations or 2 generations at least. That what are you supposed to do? Like, yeah, you could shoot street photography with it. You know what I mean? Like, sure, like my phone does that. Like every camera kind of does that. Like,
yeah.
And I also like that was a really, to talk about this, like, is camera YouTube dying or not? Like I feel like that launch was a really good, like if you're a data type person, if you want to see like trends. You know, only a couple of those videos really popped off. Like a lot of them, like it used to be that like anybody could have made a video about that X106, whether you had the camera or not, and probably push 50 to 100K views on that video.
Just
easily.
talking about it.
Just talking about it. We've kind of even like gone. We're like, this might be one of those final days, one of those days where you can just like talk about the red Nikon thing and maybe pull off a couple whatever views.
Yeah.
But this is just, like we said, this is a very rare occasion these days to have something that like that Leica SL3 came out today. And I like looked at the specs, I was like, whatever.
It came out today?
Yeah, it came out today.
I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like the same sensor as the Q3 and the M11. Like I don't even know Leica shit, but I'm like, I looked it up. I was like, oh yeah, that sensor's been out for like since May last year. Like it's nothing. There's nothing new or interesting about it. And I was like, oh wow, it shoots 8K. Don't give a shit. Okay, whatever.
Well, maybe like I feel like a lot of camera companies are kind of shooting themselves in the foot, like following the iPhone trend of like the minor upgrades every year, every other year, because it's like it's extremely underwhelming. Like the X106 is barely different, but it's like, dude, think about the jump between the A7S 2 and 3. That was 5 or 6 years, and it like shocked everyone. Everyone was selling their crap to buy that camera.
Yeah.
It's like, dude,
I was on the set. I was on a set that day, and people were pre-ordering it on set. Like they were like,
"Oh, that's so sick."
Yeah. Like it like dropped, and like the whole world like shook. The camera world like shook with something like that.
And they backed it up with like they made it sick. It was actually a cool camera.
No, it was actually a cool camera. And then they made the FX3, and then all of a sudden the FX30 comes out, and like now like Sony is the one to beat. I don't think they are actually technically even beatable at this point. I think that like someone's got to really do a full Hail Mary, like crazy, like sub $5,000. And maybe it's Nikon now. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
Or Lumix has something up their sleeve that can kind of like break the world a little bit. But it's not an R5C. It's not a C70. It's not those cameras. They're not clicking like I think those companies sort of anticipate. It's definitely not this full frame Blackmagic. Like there'll be a good micro niche for these types of cameras that people just love the workflow of like, yep, B-RAW, resolve, shoot to an SSD. I only shoot tripod corporate videos. The camera image quality is beautiful. I like OpenGate. Yeah, great. It's $2,800 for how it is, right?
Yeah.
How could you go wrong? But there's like they're never going to go after no one that's shooting on FX3 is like, yeah, I think I could go with the 6K full right from now. I'm going to switch to L mount. You know, like, or I'm going to go L mount to PL or something. Like, it's just not happening. Like, you can't get that market. It's like the whole like electric cars where it's like, yeah, sure, we're going to stop selling electric cars by 2030 or whatever the hell that law is. But the fleet is out there. There's so many gas cars on the road. We're going to have gas cars till we're dead. They're not going anywhere. Right?
Exactly.
You can't like convert the whole world just overnight like that. Even if you have the best car in the world, it's not going to happen. And I feel the same way with cameras, where it's just like we hit a point, everything's damn good now. Whatever we're locked into, and like the kids coming up now, like the Gen Z and whatnot, they don't give a shit about any of these things.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think there's a huge market of those people that are thinking more like Soderbergh, where it's like, okay, what's the interesting camera specifically for the tool that I need to shoot this movie on? I don't care.
Which is kind of how it should be.
It should be absolutely how it should be. Like if I need global shutter because the story calls for this like constant whip panning and it's a POV and I need it light and I need it on a gimbal. If I'm Gareth Edwards and I'm shooting the creator and it's like I don't want to shoot this on a mini LF but I want it full frame. What do I have my options? Okay, I get to the FX3 and I have a Ronin RS3 Pro. There you go. That's the camera that fit that narrative and that story. That's the one I want to use. I really hope more filmmakers and us on YouTube think that way. And I try to do it in that creative area. Like the answer was not, this movie does not look good because they shot it on FX3. It has fucking nothing to do with it. It only just made the world that they were creating easier to operate within, to do the things they want to do to make it look that way. That is what you take away. You know, go blow your money on an ILM's CGI budget. Don't right?
Like that. Like, that's what Gareth said. He was like, yeah, we had ILM in our back pocket, so like we could kind of like doc style film with this camera because of how light it was, and just trust like we'll be able to pull this off later.
Which is crazy because if you see all the behind the scenes, it's like they like every person that's a robot didn't even have like a tracker on them or nothing. They're just humans walking around.
Insane.
And all of a sudden they have like robot necks, right?
Yeah.
Or like entire backgrounds were just not what they shot on set at all, and it wasn't even a green screen. So like that level of filmmaking is like so beyond what like the us plebs like on YouTube are doing, right? And so we will sit here and go like, I need the oversampled 7K from the A7 IV or else my video doesn't look good, right? Whereas like they're looking at like, well, my iPhone shots, if I give it to ILM, it's gonna look like we shot on a different planet, like we're literally in space or something. Gosh, that, like once you're at that level, like they're not thinking about cameras. When I talked to Oren, like he's like, the camera was like the last thing I was thinking about.
That's so cool.
Like, it's so cool because like that. I wish there was like more of us with that sort of mentality, but the thing is, we all want to get the free camera, we all want to get the lens early, we want to go on the trips to Tokyo and have, you know, like I get that from like the community standpoint because it'd be fun if we got to go to Japan and hang out for 4 or 5 days for a camera. Who's complaining? No one's fucking. That's insane that we have those types of opportunities.
I think viewers and people in the community need to know, like, even if you get invited to one thing, that doesn't mean you're like in some secret cool group. Because like me and you have both been invited to trips, but then both been like not invited to any of the other cool trips. You can't count on brands for your happiness and your joy. Like it has to come from like your own like circle of friends and what you're making. Like you have to make it rewarding for yourself, because there's also like limitations that come with working from brands. Like you have to be more careful sometimes about what you say and stuff, which is stupid. It sucks, but like that's not what's going to get you that freedom and that joy.
Totally. And you know, I think we've been doing this long enough where we're starting to realize like I definitely do not get my happiness from like being part of the embargoes and like trying to be on the inside cool club of this thing. To an extent, I actually think it's starting to be more interesting to be on the outside of it.
Honestly.
Because, and I think the Fuji one was a really good like kind of like push, kick in the ass for me to like really not let loose, but like stop worrying too much about like being on the good graces of these companies, because ultimately like I built my channel up on my own. They came to me when I started to get bigger and started giving me things.
They need us. And also I don't want to need them for my audience. That's terrifying, because if my channel only works if I have the new thing, that's not good, because now I'm at the mercy of like trying to be a thing that I'm not. If I want to shit on a new Fuji camera, I want to shit on a new Fuji camera. Like, if I want to do that, that's who I am, and I want the audience to appreciate what I do, because I'm not trying to just sell X106s. Because I'm not a camera salesman. That's not what I want to do with my life. Nope. Yeah, and then you're truly letting go of your joy at that point, because like when you're relying on new gear to make you happy, you're directly like sacrificing contentment. Like, dude, this is really random, but I drive like a 2013 Impala LTZ, and like
that's so sick.
It's cool. But like
that was a cop car for a while, wasn't it? It was. I
got the one with like the beefier like cop engine too, so amazing. It's pretty quick. But for a while I was like looking at all these Toyotas, and I was like, man, I'm about to be a dad. It'd be sick to get like a truck. And I was looking at prices, and it was so expensive. And I don't even know like how this happened, but like one day I just like looked at my car and I was like, I love my car. It's almost paid off. Like I won't even have that bill anymore.
Totally.
I went and like took it to the car wash and I cleaned it up and I like cleaned the inside. Yeah. And I just looked at it and I was like, I like what I have. This is good. Yeah. There's like something to that. And now every time I go outside, I'm like, this is sick. I don't have to pay for this car anymore. I'm just driving around.
Totally.
It's like there's something about just like accepting what you have, even if it's not the best thing, but like mastering that thing.
Absolutely.
And appreciating it.
Yeah, no, and that's really like every time these new cameras come out, and like I'll get sucked into it. I'll get sucked into like, oh, this X106 looks interesting, and it like, but you know what's hooking me into it? My brain starts thinking, I can get views, I can get sponsors, I can make better content. You know what I mean? I'm not thinking like this is gonna make my videos look better or my photos look better. It's gonna make me a better filmmaker. I'm not thinking that, which I think is good, but it's not. It's also not healthy to think I need that thing because if I don't have it, people might not watch or do or care about what I have to say. And that's not the answer either. Like we got it. And like I said, I'm okay with like making the things I want to make and like packaging it in like an SEO like YouTube-y friendly, goofy way that I don't think is like optimal like artistic integrity. Whatever, I'm okay with that. But I don't want it to be that my channel completely relies on having the thing. I don't want to have to go to Japan with Fuji just so people watch my reviews, because every other video gets 800 views or something. You know what I mean? Like if you see channels where it's like they only get the blips when the new camera comes out, and in between that they're struggling. They're like 1,500 views, 800, whatever it is. Like they're just having a really hard time, and it's like, whoop, okay, embargo, and then they're back down to nothing. Like I really want it. Like even with the main channel, like the only thing that I think about is like cultural relevancy of like what movies are people talking about, what things are people watching. But at the same time, like it's much easier for me to go broad, because it's like not that I necessarily even to make a video about Dune. I can make a video about Greg Fraser again. I can make a video about Denis Villeneuve. I can make a fucking Timothée Chalamet video if I wanted to. It's just about being part of that conversation. Like arguably, if we had done that at that X100 thing video, you know what I helped you with, where I did the talking head, like if that came out the day the Fuji X106 came out. That's like perfect, right? That's like the perfect marriage of like, I wanted to make this video, you wanted to make this video, and we're now culturally relevant. That's perfect.
That would have been great timing.
Like, little thing. And that's the thing, like with your commercials, like it's so dependent on like the timing of that streamer seeing it, what the streamer does with it. There's so many things that are just sort of like beyond what you can fully control, right? Which is like the challenge of all the shit that we make for the internet.
Dude, I think lottery. What I've learned during my like retro review series, like oddly enough, that's like my most consistently well-performing series, and it's given me a lot of hope, because I'll read through the comments, and I think there's more people out there like you and me than we realize, because we've been caught up in this like gear world. I think for the average consumer who doesn't want to make YouTube videos, they just watch videos, I think it's exhausting seeing all of these new releases. And then we make stuff about like old cameras that are $400, and it's just like a fun piece of video. It's like, I think it's refreshing, because it's like, I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm trying to show you this like quirky, fun thing and still make something cool with it. So I just think we're like taking a difficult road, but it's like, ultimately long run, I think it's going to be more fulfilling, because like there are people out there that think like we do.
Totally. And I think like it's not just that you're talking about old cameras, you're packaging it in a very entertaining way. That's also really important. And I think that's like key to your success too, because anybody can talk about old cameras. There's a million old camera videos on the internet. But you package it in a very entertaining way that like reminds me of like a donut and stuff like that, where it's like the history of it and like the, you know, where it came from, why they made it, all that kind of stuff. Like Frame Voyager's pretty good at that kind of stuff too. Yeah, it's just like here's like the lineage path of like why we're at this point with this body and this camera or whatever it is, like the history and all. Like there's an audience for people, and I agree that like people are really, really, I don't know if annoyed is the word, but like just over it. Like a lot of people are over
it's fatigue. I think
it's so fatigue, and like you're just over this like constant like this is the best, because you know what. Too many of us, for the longest time, just kept saying this was the best camera. This is the best at this.
We're part of the problem, for sure.
We're 100% part of the problem. And now we're like eating our words, because now we do have the best, and we don't know what else to fucking talk about.
Damn it, now I have to be creative? This sucks, Mom.
This sucks. I just want to talk about fucking specs and OpenGate and bullshit. I don't want to actually make movies. I don't want to actually make things. That sounds awful.
Read an ad read in monotone and get a freaking bag.
I want to read a B&H spec page and get 800,000 views. This is bullshit. What happened to the
amount of times I've read B&H spec sheets is insane. Gosh, dude.
Oh god. Okay,
This
well
is
that's
so
hitting
fun though, man.
That's hitting like an hour 20. I might even edit this, just kind of leave it as it is and just see what happens.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. That's
Super
the beauty
fun.
of a second channel. If anybody's out there and they're like, I'm gonna quit YouTube, just make a second channel.
Dude, your
'Cause then,
second channel is definitely like gaining like a cult following of its
It's
own.
got its
which
little,
is
it's got its little thing, and it's like like it's. I wish I could think about the main channel like I think about the second channel, where I could just fucking not care as much.
Right?
But that's my big challenge for this year. Is like just stop putting it all on a pedestal.
Yeah,
It doesn't
why
matter.
do we do that?
Why do
'Cause
we do that?
I'm there too. It's like I can't stop obsessing over like how like all my thumbnails look like. Is there enough style to it? Like my videos don't look as stylish as they
Yeah.
could. It's like I'm just trying to like poop more stuff out just
Totally.
to get myself over it.
Yeah, and like Gerald and I were talking about it yesterday, where like we'll take time off. Like he took like 50 days off or something like that, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'll take a couple months off, especially from the main channel. I'll take 2-3 months off. And it's not like YouTube penalizes you for going away. If the content is good, it'll find the audience for it. But I also find that you get into a routine of not doing it, and you can also get into a routine of doing it. So one is obviously more beneficial. But if you get into a routine of not making videos, it's really easy to just keep putting it off.
Yeah.
Whereas I find, like, I know even putting this video out will like give me like a little bit of a boost. It's like, oh, by the way, remember that? It wasn't that hard. You can press fucking upload.
Yeah, and then
It's
hit it
easy.
again.
And do it again. And you just kind of get into a rhythm. And the key is just like keeping it going. But like we have lives, man. It's like you're about to have a kid, and like I'm dealing with all this stuff in like my real like work and all that thing. Is like, and that's always gonna like hit me at a point where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna just like, this is the YouTube year, and then it's like, oh, you know, by the way, we want to hire you to bring you on this shoot for the next like 6 months. Like, well, there goes that idea. Like, I'm not. There goes YouTube. Like, it's not that's fine. I guess this isn't the year for YouTube, whatever it is that ends up being. But there's like, you just got to get into the groove of it, and then not fucking care so much. Like I really like today. I really just got to get this Dune video done, and just whatever happens. I just got to stop thinking about it. I got to stop.
One thing
like,
for my brain that's helped is like now I'm kind of looking at like each video has its own audience instead of thinking like, oh gosh, if I make one video that doesn't do well, like it penalizes my whole channel.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
which is not
it's
true
like,
at all.
It's not true. It's just how it works now with the algorithm. It seems is like every video, like YouTube will try to find the right audience for it. And I've talked to like one of the upper dudes at YouTube
Yeah.
when I went to like Sony Condo last year.
Yeah, was it
And-
Todd?
No, what was his name? It's like
It doesn't matter. I've been hearing about this one YouTube guy that apparently a lot of people talking to.
yeah, he was like super nice and like just opened the doors on YouTube, and he's like, the algorithm is not this like super scary thing you guys think it is, like, and it doesn't try to punish you. It's just trying to find an audience for each video that you make. So that gives me hope. If a video bombs, gets 600 views, like on my channel, it's like, man, that feels painful.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's like, I'm just gonna make another video and see what that one does.
I'm gonna leave you with two things. One is like one of the biggest tech YouTubers in the world told me he doesn't look at his YouTube studio for like a week after he uploads the video. He just refuses.
I love that.
Right? And I've done that, and it doesn't ever feel good, because what happens is you'll upload, and here's the trick. And I actually have to avoid YouTube in general, because I know that like if I'm on my second channel, it might feed me that main video, and I'll see the fucking view count on it, right? Like on my own homepage. Like I won't even be in YouTube Studio. So what I'll do is I'll upload the video, and I'll just sort of like maybe see the few first comments and whatnot, but I don't let it show me rankings. I don't let it see the 1 or 2 out of 10, whatever it is. I'll be there for like 5 minutes just to make sure it's all up and the sponsor thing is in there and it's perfect. And I'll leave. The longest I've gone is like 4 days now. I'll leave it, and then I'll come back like on if I say I upload on a Friday, I won't check YouTube Studio, and I won't even go on YouTube at all, and I'll let it ride. And what happens is you go on the Tuesday, and if it did really well, you're like, "Fuck, that's amazing, that's great," and it'll be high because it's like 5 days have gone by, right? So it's like 100,000 views, or like this is crazy, or it's got like 8,000 views or 5,000, but you're so beyond repair that you can't even care, right?
True,
It's
and
not
you've
like
already like done other stuff in your
and
life.
you've
You're
done
not
other
sitting
things,
there
you're
like
already moving on to the next fucking thing you want to work on, and you didn't waste 5 days of your life being like, what if I titled it this? What if I changed this thumbnail?
I actually, just to add something to that for anybody out there who's interested, there is a Google Chrome, what is it called, extension called Goodbye Metrics. Actually, Matt Diavella, he developed this, brother. It has changed my life. You enable the extension, and it automatically, you can hide view count, subscriber count, ratings, comments, channel analytics completely. The block that has the green arrow or red arrow, it turns it off.
That's crazy.
So even if you go to your YouTube studio, it will not show up.
That's cool.
So it's called Goodbye Metrics if anybody's interested.
That, and I also just recommend just like throw it to the wind and let life be life, right?
Yeah.
I know we do it. I've done it. where it just consumes you if a video is not doing well, and it like that's not healthy at all. Because then you go into the next video like, oh my god, I got to prove myself now because I fucking bombed that last video, and it's like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Like this sucks. Like no one's ever gonna sponsor my channel ever again. I'm screwed.
Oh my god, yeah.
But it's so you know who told me? Do you remember Gary, the Everyday Dad? Do you know that guy?
Yes.
Yeah. So him and I were like pretty good friends like through the pandemic and whatnot. But he kind of like got off Twitter. Like him, I could still text him and chat with him. He's a nice guy. But he told me like really early on, when I was at like maybe 15,000 subscribers, I got connected with him, and I was more of like a tech channel at the time. And he kept saying to me, don't make videos for subscribers, just make videos for YouTube. And and it seems like kind of lofty and like up in the air, but it's what you were saying. It's not about what your specific audience wants to see. It's the audience for that video that you're making.
100%.
Right? So when I'm making a video about whatever it is, like I've actually done like watch videos. I've done fucking cooking type shit on my channel. And it's like, it's so beyond anything else that I've ever uploaded before, but it doesn't matter because it found the audience in the niche of YouTube of whatever that video is supposed to live in.
Yeah.
It's not, we look at our channel as like an actual like TV channel where it's like HBO only hosts like premium high quality shit. But you got to look at it like Discovery or something like that, where it's like, maybe it's like a high end documentary or it's like Ice Road Truckers. Like I think
it can live on the same channel.
It can live on the same thing. It doesn't really matter. Like sure, people that like, there's going to be people that know Zach videos or know Patrick videos. Like why the hell is he making a fucking car review of an Impala or something like that? Like
I actually want to do that.
Absolutely, and you should. And you will find like an audience of Impala owners on YouTube, and you'll find like you'll get like Doug DeMuro's audience watching your video, and it doesn't really matter that you're not talking about cameras anymore. Like you just can't like pigeon yourself into like one niche. That to me is like creative suicide. Just like I can only talk about this one thing on this channel. That's bullshit.
You're gonna hate it.
You're gonna hate it. Yeah. Like I'm already like we've talked about this. I'm already kind of getting a little tired of like doing movie videos on the main channels. Like what's the next thing? Like I would love to talk about like maybe the music side of movies and like composers and like talk to those types of people. Or, like talk to a gaffer. Talk to a fucking electrician on a set. It doesn't have to be like every single thing is like the cinematography of whatever fucking movie or show or whatever the thing came out. Like you can
always come back to those series ideas too. That's why I like doing series because it like frees me up creatively. It's like I'll come back to this idea later when I'm interested again. Yeah,
and like even like your retro thing could be like its own little network channel. Like it's just like that could be a channel.
It
where
totally could.
You just put your episodes up for that retro TV thing or the retro cameras thing on that Zach's retro whatever fucking camera channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you know what? It doesn't even matter. Keep putting it on your main channel because they'll always bang. It doesn't matter if the video before got. It doesn't matter if the video before got 500 views or 20,000 views.
Yeah, it's
that
true.
audience clearly exists on YouTube. So you can lean into that for like a year and just ride that wave if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that a lot more this year. I mean, now that I'm mostly just doing YouTube, I'm gonna like be just experimenting a lot and seeing where it goes.
I mean, that's the good thing. Like, don't get to this. Like, I know a lot of YouTubers that have like turned this into a business, right? And like they've got employees and mortgages and rent on offices, and like that really changes how you approach your content, right? Because you start doing.
Not sound fun.
No, it doesn't. And trust me, it's not. Like, I mean, a lot of them are like really good and they figure it out and they do a really great job. But I can see like what doesn't work for me is that like you're really saying yes to a lot of things you probably never would have said yes to before because you got to pay your editor, you got to pay your camera person, and you got to pay the guy that does your thumbnails, and you know what I mean. You got to pay rent on the studio that like 4 people are working out of, and so you start doing ad reads and integrations and dedicated videos that don't do so well, but the brand paid, right? And at least everyone on your team got paid. But creatively, you're like, what the hell am I doing? What is?
And it took a week or 2 weeks of your life.
Totally.
That's draining, man.
That's draining as hell. Yeah. So don't. That's the thing. Like, if you're full time now, like my advice is like, don't lose that like creative experimentation edge. Just because, and you know what, you've done it a few things now where it's like things have worked, things that haven't. That you're getting a thick skin towards it, and that's all you really need. The thick skin is key because early on the ego takes such a hard hit, especially if you have a couple wins. Like you have a couple wins, you're like, oh man, these videos fucking ripped. I did it. I'm finally a YouTuber, right? And then it's like 900 views. You're like, what?
Oh yeah, I think that will really give you a thick skin is when I think you finally realize like, nope. It feels like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is a little too like depressed thinking, but like nobody really cares about you. Like I feel like if I stopped uploading for a year, like I don't think people would be like, dude, where's your videos? Like blah, 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 blah.
I wouldn't go that far. I think there's people that will miss you and be like, did he die? What the fuck? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's not like it's not like the whole world
we're not like
you.
Unique. Yeah. We're not. You can't go at this and be like, I'm a unique, precious person. The world is baiting at breath for my next video. Like no one gives a shit.
Also,
right?
I don't want to be around those people because I have worked for people like that who like have small YouTube channels, but they think they are so cool, man. And I'm like, dude, you're just a guy. You're just a guy.
Yeah.
Please.
That's what I look at. We're just some guy. Like, we're just like, what are you listening to this for? If you're watching this, like, we're just two guys. Like, what are you doing?
Are you still watching this
Why are you
video,
still
guy?
watching this video, guy?
We're
Get
just
out
two
of here. Go
guys.
get a life. Yeah.
So when are me and you like starting the donut media of cameras?
We absolutely should. We should get Frame Voyager involved. Get a few, like, we're just like, honestly, there's like a whole channel idea there of just like, whether it's, you know, it's the movie side of things, the tech of cameras, and like interviews with people and like breakdowns, like even that thing I did with Ari, like more stuff like that, like talk to engineers behind these cameras, but like talk to people that actually make these things. Even if the audience isn't huge for it, there's enough, like for me, that's enough people that find that kind of stuff interesting.
It would be a culty channel for sure, but it would be so fun. Like, let's just keep that in our back pocket.
And ultimately, like the Ari thing is like, I didn't care if people watched that. I got to go talk to them. That's all I wanted.
So sick.
Right? Like,
and that's creatively fulfilling.
Absolutely. Like that whole, now I have friends at Ari. Like that to me is way more beneficial than if that video had a sponsor or something like that. That doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's like, no, I learned something. I've got a connection and a relationship with them, and now we can do more stuff together. And Ari sure as hell doesn't give a shit if the videos get views or not. They're just like, oh yeah, you guys want to make things? Let's make things.
They don't need our views.
No, they don't need our views at all. But they do want to be part of the conversation, which is smart of them, right?
Yeah.
They want to start telling like this generation, even the younger ones, that like, you know, if you get to become a real movie maker that's working in Hollywood, this is the camera you're supposed to use. This is the one you should use, and that's smart marketing and smart branding.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude. No, thank you for doing this. This is fun.
Yeah, this has been a blast, man. I appreciate it. I'm about to go build a freaking chonky PC today, and I'm terrified.
Yeah. Let me know how that goes.
I will.
I'm gonna try and get this Dune video done.
All right, bro. Yeah, good luck.
Bye.
Hit record. Go sit in a sandbox.
Absolutely. Cheers.